Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. Sorry, you guys are bounced on my chair, and that's on my MacBook. Real quick before we get into today's video, little life update. Since the last time y'all saw me, I got new glasses. They're plastic, they're not the middle ones I had. I resigned from my teaching position, and I changed my major in school. I don't know if I mentioned that in my last videos, which was me talking about advocating for my nephew. I changed my major from early childhood education to criminal justice. Like I mentioned, resigned from my teaching job. If you guys would like to know why, I can make a whole separate video on that. A lot of stuff happened that made me want to leave that job. Sadly, I will dearly miss my students. That was one of my absolute favorite jobs. Like, on a lighter note, I am in search of a job, so expect a lot more videos this summer. But on top of that, I went to Tennessee this past weekend. I went to Gatlinburg with my group of friends, and we took my little niece, my little 5-year-old niece, and it was actually so much fun to kind of even just go down for a weekend. We want to make it a yearly thing. But yeah, just want to give you guys a little catch up of what's going on in my life. Let's get into today's video. Today's video is kind of true crime, kind of odd, kind of a mix of things. Why not go back to the celebrities? And I am one of those people that, like, if I see like a video, like a Watch Mojo video, and it's like 50 celebrities who had like odd deaths or something like that, I always am like, oh my god, I need to watch that. Like, I need to watch that video like right now, like da da da. So I googled celebrities who had weird deaths, and I found 9. Found 9 of them. Wrote them down. So these are celebrity deaths that are still confusing to this day. Number 1 is George Reeves. If you don't know who George Reeves is, you might be around my age, and don't have parents who were in their 70s. He's best known for playing the main character in Adventures of Superman, and his death on June 16th, 1959, from a gunshot wound to the head was ruled a suicide. But there was a lack of evidence and suspicious circumstances and contradictory, like, witness reports made people wonder if it was really a suicide. Like, I think this is, like, something that we see a lot with celebrities, is, especially if they're considered suicide, like, how everything is. So on the night of his death, George and his, fiancée at the time, Lenore Lemon, I only know how to say, I'm assuming it's Lemon, it's literally spelled like lemon, just with an extra L or an extra M, and they had been out drinking. They had actually arrived home, and she had invited some of their friends over, and you know, once their friends got there, George decided he was going to go up to go to bed, and at some point during the night, while his fiancée and her friends were downstairs, George had apparently come downstairs and asked for them to quiet down. You know, he's trying to sleep, understandable. And apparently, as George was going back up the stairs to, you know, go back to bed, his fiancée reportedly made a joke saying that he was going upstairs to shoot himself. The group heard a noise coming from upstairs, but didn't immediately check it. This is where the inconsistencies kind of begin with the story, and the stories, I should say, of who had been there that night and, you know, everything going on. Despite the apparent suicide, there were no fingerprints found in the gun. And George did not have gunpowder residue on his hands. Also, Lenore and her friends only reported hearing 1 bang, but there were 3 bullets found at the scene, along with a casing whose placement wasn't consistent with the suicide. This is like the one question we have in my nephew's case, like, how many bullets were missing from his gun? Where was the bullet in his? There were 3 bullets found at the scene of George Reeves. If you're going to kill yourself, you don't shoot multiple times. A lot of times you aim it, and 1 shot is usually all it takes. And then they found a casing. So, like, and if you think about it, there's just a lot of going around about that. This just was not consistent with a suicide. Despite all of that, despite all the inconsistencies and the confusion, it was still ruled a suicide. However, there are 3 main theories from everything surrounding his death. So, the first theory for George Reeves was that he was depressed about a lack of roles post his Superman role. Like I mentioned earlier, he was the main star, he was Clark Kent himself, he was Superman, and this is in the era of, like, you know, Marilyn Monroe and all of those really big celebrities that we know from this time era. And George Reeves really didn't have a lot of roles post Superman. He really didn't. And you know, that's sad, but Superman was kind of what made him and it, you know, I understand that one. It makes sense. But he was depressed from that and apparently killed himself. The second theory is that there was a drunken incident or drunken accident and his fiance ended up killing him. If I remember correctly, there is a BuzzFeed Unsolved video on George Reeves, and I think they go into, like, detail about that theory a little bit more than I'm going to go into it. So if there is, I will totally link it down below because I love those guys. 3, that it was a planned murder in retaliation to an affair that he had reportedly had with actor Tony Mannix. I think I'm saying her last name right. I don't know much about that one. Like I said, I think the BuzzFeed Unsolved video goes more into this. I will say, if you guys want me to do a whole video on George Reeves and his death, let me know down below. The next one, number 2, the second celebrity I'm talking about, I would love to do a whole video on. I actually, on my last MacBook, had a whole thing, like, written out, whole script. And then, if you follow me on TikTok, you know what happened with that MacBook. It kind of pooped. But number 2 is Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood's body was found off the coast of Santa Catalina Island, where she'd been vacationing with her husband at the time, Robert Wagner, and her Brainstorm co-star, Christopher Walken. I wish I could do the Christopher Walken voice, because it's so iconic. And their friend / captain, Dennis Davern, she was found floating about 200 meters away from a motorized dinghy in the early hours of the morning. So, if you don't know about this case in of itself is, for one, still unsolved, technically. 2, Robert Wagner and Christopher Walken have both been asked about it since, and they've both kind of just steered clear of it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but they've literally just kind of ignored it. And if you know Natalie Wood, or know anything about Natalie Wood, she was famously terrified of dark waters. Which is understanding. My best friend is absolutely terrified of the ocean, I get it. So her being found, like, floating in the ocean is crazy. Initially, her death was assumed accidental. However, the more that officials were finding out about the story, about what happened that night, it became so complicated over the years, and the stories changed, and timelines changed with new information. And in her husband's memoir, Pieces of My Heart, Robert claims that he and Natalie and Christopher Walken returned to the boat around 10 p.m. after wining and dining on the island. Witnesses have said that the 3 were very intoxicated. It was very obvious they were intoxicated. And, when they were back on the boat, Dennis, their friend / their captain, said that Robert Wagner smashed a bottle in front of Natalie and Christopher out of the blue and questioned Christopher, saying, "What are you trying to do? Fuck my wife?" Natalie apparently left and went to her room, and Robert followed, and they began to argue. So, their friend / their captain claims that Robert Wagner kind of assumed that her and Christopher Walken were sleeping together on the side. Natalie seemed to be very visibly upset by this, and she ran off. Dennis claimed that it sounded like it could become physical, and even said that Natalie and Robert continued this argument onto the back of the boat. And keep in mind, this information came out years after Natalie's death. Like, this was in 2011 when he told authorities this. Like, this is a good, like, there's a good years between this, right? Dennis shared this with investigators in 2011, which reopened the case in 2012 and brought Wagner, which was her husband, back into question. In 2012, because they reopened the case, her cause of death was actually amended from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined facts. After years of additional investigation, Robert Wagner was actually cleared, and the case was left open and unsolved. Like I said, there's only 3 people who were there: Robert Wagner, Christopher Walken, and Dennis Davern, and Natalie, but Natalie said she can't tell us. I think there's a lot of weird things there. I mean, if she was famously known for being scared of dark waters, I think if I remember correctly, I watched a video on her, about the case, and it was like she had a movie role where she had to be in water, and it like terrified her. Like I said, I'll have to find a video that I watched about her, because I can't remember who it was that I watched the video on, but like I think they mentioned the water thing, and that's just the one thing that stuck with me. Number 3, I guess this whole list is probably just gonna be cases I've not done. This one I actually also had a whole script for, and number 3 is Brittany Murphy. If you've never seen 8 Mile, she was in that one. She was in a movie with one of the Fanning sisters. I can't remember what that one's called. I'll put it up, the poster of it up. But she was 32 years old when she collapsed on her bathroom floor, and was just hours after she collapsed, was pronounced dead at Cedars-Sinai Hospital in California. So, 32, relatively healthy, out of the blue, she literally dies. Like, she falls down and dies. Okay? Her coroner's report later showed pneumonia as her cause of death, listed anemia and multiple drug intoxication as contributing factors. Okay, if she had pneumonia, she was most likely on some kind of antibiotic. So keep that in mind. I also, if I remember correctly, read somewhere that she did have some kind of issue with addiction. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't like her character in that movie she did with Winona Ryder and Angelina Jolie, Girl Interrupted. I think that's a title. So following her death, this is actually kind of ironic as well. Both her mother and her husband, Simon Monjack, who she wasn't married to for very long, made very strange appearances together on the Larry King Live show, which if I can find any clips, you will see that. Brittany lived with the two of them while she was alive, and after she passed, her mom and her husband still lived together in the home that Brittany died in. Very odd. And her husband had a criminal record and a track record of abusive behavior towards his exes. And because of that, this created tons and tons of conspiracy theories around what actually happened to her. There's all sorts of them. A majority of these theories center around some kind of poisoning, be that it was accidental by mold or intentionally by her mother or her husband. The one suggested by her, mother killing her, is suggested to be linked to a desire for Brittany's wealth and/or an alleged affair between her mom and her husband. And theories only grew wilder. I mean, this is crazy. When only 6 months, less than actually 6 months, after she died, her husband died of the same causes. But her mom's still alive, I do believe. That is crazy to me to know that and people can say, like, broken heart, you can die from broken heart, which you can. Like that actual broken heart, just like the grief gets to you. But there's like a whole thing. And like I said, if you guys want to see full-length videos on any of these, please comment down below, because some of these I would love to. Some of them I watched full-length videos on. A lot of times it's just hard getting information and kind of making sure that information's correct and not copying somebody else's video. You know what I mean? So, moving on. Number 4 is Michael Rockefeller. If you don't know who the Rockefellers are, every year Rockefeller Center is decorated with a tree in New York. At just 23 years old, so like he's my age, Michael disappeared while traveling to Dutch New Guinea, which is actually now West Papua. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm white, okay? I'm white and trying to learn French, and it's not working. He was the son of then New York City governor and had been traveling for 7 months when his boat capsized, sending him and his travel companion into the Betsy River. It's Betsj. I don't know if that's correct or not. So while two others, they were traveling with 2 others, who were native to the region and familiar with the hostility of the river, they made it to shore, and Michael and his companion stayed atop the overturned boat. I'm assuming because they were worried that, they didn't know the terrain, they didn't know the river, they would rather stay on the overturned boat, in a sense, so that their other companions can go get help. Michael was apparently worried that they would float into the open ocean, and that would give them even less of a chance of survival. So he attached a makeshift flotation device to his belt and jumped into the river. I'm picturing like flotation device. If you've read Hunger Games Catching Fire, like the ones that Katniss mentions on their belt in the arena. So he jumped in, probably assumingly to swim to shore. The swim to shore was estimated to be somewhere between 3 and 10 miles. His companion stayed behind and was rescued the following morning by search parties. So if Michael had just stayed with his companion, they would have been found within hours. Michael vanished, was never seen again. 2 weeks worth of search parties, they scoured the region. He was never found dead or alive. His disappearance actually created many theories on how he might have met his demise. Some were simple and straightforward, that he drowned. Like the natives mentioned, it was rough terrain, it was rough waters. He didn't know these waters, he didn't know the terrain very well, so it is most likely that he could have drowned, swimming the 3 or 10 miles to shore. Others suggest that he actually abandoned society and joined the Asmat tribe, that called this region home. This claim actually has some photographic evidence of a white man amongst them. Others kind of believe that theory as well, that he met the Asmats, but when he reached their land, he was ultimately killed and eaten by them. I'm talking about it. I've seen it a handful of times. It does kind of resemble Michael Rockefeller, but I don't think it's him. I think he most likely drowned, and, his body's probably somewhere at the ocean, Who knows? Number 5 is Elizabeth Short. This one actually has a cool nickname to go with it. The Black Dahlia. There is a BuzzFeed Unsolved on this one as well. I will not do a full-length video on this one. Her death is very graphic. What happened to her is very graphic as well. I've actually looked into the case. I've thought about researching it. I won't. It's literally absolutely disgusting what happened to her. Elizabeth Short was a 22-year-old aspiring actress when her body was found on a barely developed Los Angeles street, naked, bloodless, and sliced in half, and positioned like a mannequin. I don't know if you guys have ever seen season 1 of American Horror Story, Murder House. They mention the Black Dahlia, and I don't remember what season it is. I think it's still season 1, where they kind of over dramatize it and make it seem like something happened. But that was kind of my first really big introduction to the Black Dahlia case, and then it was gross in that. So per the BBC, she had been mutilated, her intestines removed, and her mouth slashed from ear to ear. Unfortunately, her case remains unsolved to this day. I do know that there's been one big person linked to her case. It's a doctor. I can't remember his name. Yeah. The theories, however, circle her case mostly to the fact that there are little to no leads or evidence in her case. It got to the point that the FBI is involved, and they speculate that her killer might have worked or studied in medicine. Like I mentioned, one of the biggest suspects in the case is a doctor. And given the precision of her dissection, students at USC Medical School were looked into at the time. So they were looking into students and doctors at the time. Though for similar reasons, because of how precise she was cut and her intestines being removed and her being literally drained of her blood, her killer could have been a butcher, though I don't believe that. And neither lane of suspects actually kind of led authorities anywhere. However, in what investigators were hoping would be a breakthrough, they received a letter from the potential murderer with fingerprints on it. This is back in the 1920s, though.
Hi, this is editing Sarah now. Don't say anything about the terrible quality. I said this was in the 1920s. Elizabeth Short was found in 1947. I don't know why I said the 1920s. Sorry about that. Just discredit what I just said.
Though they weren't a match to any database at the time, and I don't think they've matched them since. I might have to look into that one, but I don't think they have. It remains unsolved to this day, which is a shame. It's a big case, and it's big when the FBI gets involved, but yeah. Number 6 is Elliot Smith. I had not actually heard of him, so I actually did Google him. Still don't know who he is after I Googled him. Yeah. Elliot Smith on October 21st, 2003. I would have been 2 months old. Crazy. Elliot and his girlfriend Jennifer Sheba were fighting in their shared LA apartment when he threatened to kill himself. According to Jennifer, this wasn't something out of the blue for him, so Jennifer locked herself in the bathroom in the heat of their fight and stayed in there until she heard a scream. She unlocked the door and came back out to find Elliot with a kitchen knife lodged in his chest, stabbing him right in the heart. He would die just 20 minutes after arriving at the hospital. While an apparent suicide note was found, it said, "I'm sorry, love Elliot, God forgive me," was found on a sticky note. His death was still considered suspicious for many reasons. First and foremost, who the hell tries to kill himself by stabbing themselves in the chest with a kitchen knife? That's crazy. Investigators struggled with whether to rule it suicide or murder. First and foremost, the stab to the heart is one of the rarest and most painful ways to commit suicide, though that doesn't make it impossible for him to have done it. What wasn't usual was that he had no hesitation wounds or initial shallower cuts typically inflicted before the final wound, and had small potential self-defense wounds. So if he did kill himself, it was an immediate stab to the chest, okay? However, because I have had a loved one who they say has killed himself, you have those thoughts of, was there hesitation marks? Was there, something? We were told there was not hesitation marks. So if he did kill himself, he immediately pulled the trigger, right? If Elliot did this, he made that decision and he went with it. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Which usually with this type of suicide, there's a, kind of hesitation marks and then the final blow. But the fact that he had none of those and defensive wounds is kind of crazy. Further, to add to this, Jennifer had reportedly removed the knife from his body, and though she has personally denied this, it was reported that she refused to speak to detectives initially. When I was reading that one, I was like, that one makes literally no sense, especially if they were in a heated argument and all of a sudden she's locked herself in the bathroom and then she opens the door to him screaming and he's got a knife in his chest. It all happens within a span of 5 minutes too, so yeah. Number 7 is Anton Yelchin. This one, it's a freak accident, really. It's a shame that this happened. He was actually really on track to have a really good career if he hadn't have died. In June of 2016, so 10 years ago, the Star Trek actor died in a freak accident in which he was pinned between his fence and his mailbox at his Los Angeles property by his 2015 Jeep Cherokee. The car had been recalled just months earlier for having confusing gear shifters that on one occasion caused the vehicle to roll off. This was believed to have been the cause of his death, and I believe a neighbor saw this happen, and they confirmed that it was what happened, was that it literally rolled and pinned him. I think his driveway was on a incline, and he thought he parked it. I think it was in the wrong gear. He thought he had parked it, I guess, and he should have probably put the emergency brake up, and he went to check his mail, and the next thing you know, he died. A lawsuit was actually filed against Jeep. As per the lawsuit, it was that he was crushed and lingered alive for some time, trapped and suffocating until his death. That is probably one of the worst ways to go. Number 8 is Marilyn Monroe. Her birthday was June 1st, so happy late birthday. Marilyn Monroe was 36 years old. She was a Hollywood icon, and she was found dead in her home in August of 1962. Per a 1962 Los Angeles Time article, Marilyn's psychiatrist broke into her room at 3:30 in the morning and found her naked, face down, and clutching a telephone receiver in bed. Because I've done true crime, a lot of times you see pictures of these things, and I have seen pictures of the Marilyn Monroe crime scene, and she's literally face down in her bed, hand clutching the receiver, naked. The covers are halfway up her back. They're covering everything, but yeah. She had reportedly been dead for somewhere between 6 to 8 hours due to an apparent overdose of sleeping pills, and investigators were uncertain whether it was accidental or suicide. However, a second timeline of events was proposed in the documentary The Mystery of Marilyn Monroe, The Unheard Tapes, based on hundreds of interviews aimed to get to the bottom of the inconsistencies in the original story. It was suggested that per the word of several paramedics and the wife of Marilyn's PR manager at the time, that she was unwell hours earlier and around 10:30 p.m. that night before, and that she was taken in an ambulance alive and died on the way to the hospital. Regardless, the reason for her death remains a mystery. There are hundreds of theories at this point surrounding the nature of it all, from her romantic involvements with JFK and Robert Kennedy to CIA involvement over fear of her harboring communist connections. Like, there's a whole shit ton of things on Marilyn Monroe. Let me know if you want to see a video on it. Our final one for this video is none other than the author of weird and mysterious and dark shit, Edgar Allan Poe. On September 27th, 1849, Edgar left Richmond, Virginia for Philadelphia, Pennsylvania for an editing job. Okay? Only he never made it to Philly and was not seen in New York, which is where he lived. He wasn't found at all. In fact, for almost a week, when the author didn't turn, almost a week, and then randomly, about a week later, he did turn up once again, though he was in Baltimore, Maryland. It was October, 4 days before his death. Edgar was found laying in the gutter of Gunner's Hall Tavern. He was delirious, disheveled, and dressed in someone else's clothing. His friends assumed him to be drunk, so he was sent to Washington College Hospital to recover. While there, he drifted in and out of consciousness, covered in sweat and talking to seemingly imaginary things. Nobody else could see. So it was almost like he was talking to himself, which, in retrospect, now that I'm thinking about this, I probably wasn't thinking about this at the time. If this was just days before his death, if you are CNA or work in a hospital with older people, a lot of times people say that when the older people are getting closer to death, they'll talk to things that aren't in the room or anything like that. Which that just brought me up. He was unable to adequately answer the physician's questions and was reported to have repeatedly asked for someone by the name of Reynolds on his final day in the hospital. To this day, no one knows who Reynolds is. I almost wonder if it was somebody he knew as a kid, that brought him comfort or something like that, or someone who he really didn't talk about in the public or to people. Because he died in 1849, there are several theories about his death. Carbon monoxide poisoning, all the way to rat poison, or to rabies, my bad. However, one of the most popular theories that would happen to Edgar was that he was cooped. So cooping was a 19th century method gangs would use to rig elections by kidnapping people, disguising them, forcing them to vote for the preferred candidate, then rewarding them with alcohol. As this occurred during the Prohibition type era, alcohol wasn't really, a thing or allowed. Which makes sense. They did find him disheveled, delirious, and in somebody else's clothing. It all literally could have been that he was cooped, he was robbed, or whatever. And he had been found on election day, and the tavern he was found at was actually a polling site. So, Edgar Allan Poe actually passed away on October 7th at the hospital. And to this day, nobody knows what actually happened to him, because he couldn't answer adequately what happened to him. So, that is 9 celebrity deaths that are still confusing. One of the things that I was wanting to do with this video specifically, was I love, when I sit down and watch videos on celebrities, like I mentioned earlier, and I wanted to do confusing ones, and I wanted to do ones that people still talk about, and I found some. And if you guys would like to see more videos like this, please let me know. Also, remember, you can suggest a video. It's always up on the screen to talk about it. All you gotta do is click a few buttons, and then you can tell me what video you want. I should probably check that email, actually, because sometimes I don't get notifications for that email. I don't know why. It's just always been that way. So yeah. My next video, I'm hoping, is just a true crime video. Request a video. You request an in-house video. It don't have to be true crime. It don't have to be anything of what I usually do. You know what I mean? I'm open to ideas right now, okay? If you would like a full-length video on why I left my job, as a paraprofessional, I will make one. Just let me know down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. It kind of feels good sitting back down in front of the camera. I am just, very busy, kind of working my ice cream shop job and enjoying life, and I just have a lot of stuff coming up. So I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.